to admit these things or talk about it. So it's very, we really want to make sure that they're aware that it's not
Excuse
allowed.
me, ladies. So we're gonna be getting started.
Okay,
Um,
give me 1 minute. Your name is pronounced Angelique Desinor, right?
Yes, Angelique does.
Perfect. We ready? Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to the Madge Lewis Scholarship Foundation presentation. This morning, it is Saturday, October 24th, 11 a.m. here in Sunrise, Florida, where it's actually a little bit overcast. And I know you are joining us from all over the world because this is a global issue that affects you from wherever you are. So we're thanking you for joining us. I'm going to ask you now to share with your friends, your family, your neighbors, women, children, men. This is not only for people who have been affected by domestic violence, but you may know someone that's impacted. You may want to be educate yourself so you can acknowledge these behaviors and you can help others. So this is for everybody. We are aware that there's a stigma around domestic violence and people don't want to own up to it or admit they're going through it. But let's just do this for somebody else. So it's not for you, but maybe for somebody else. So take the time to share on your Facebook page, share on YouTube, invite others to attend this morning. This morning, we are blessed to have with us a representative from the Women in Distress. And I want to stop here to say, although it's the women in distress, we understand that men are in distress too, children that are in distress too. So this affects everyone. We're in October, and October happens to be a lot of things that impact our lives personally. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and it's also Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So that's why Madge Lewis Scholarship Foundation found it important to host this event this morning. So I want you, as you share with your friends, to sit back, relax, listen, learn, take notes, and get ready to share. I present to you today's presenter, Angeli Designor, who is a prevention specialist from the Broward County Women in Distress. I want to also encourage you to put your questions in the chat. We will take questions as we go on. So if you have questions, putting in the chat. We will pause and we'll take questions, and she'll try her best to answer as many questions as you have. So thank you, Angelique. Thank you for your commitment to this project and for helping out Madge Lewis Scholarship Foundation. Take it away.
Thank you so much for having me. Hello, everyone from everywhere. My name is Angeli from Women in Distress. I really am happy to be here. I'm happy to answer as much questions as I can during this presentation. With that being said, I'm going to share my screen for a while. I'm going to be talking about a few different things dealing with domestic violence and what we do here at Women in Distress towards the end of that. So hold on, sit tight, and we'll begin. If it is possible, am I allowed to have the feature of sharing screen? Unfortunately, I'm unable to as of right now. Give me that moment.
hold on a second. You should. Hold on.
Okay, thank you
You
so
sh-
much. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and get this started. Hopefully everyone can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So, as displayed here, as you all can see, um, we are catering to Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Our theme for this month and this year is Behind the Mask. Um, So I wanted to make sure that that's displayed and that's aware. Just so you all are aware, our mission is to stop domestic abuse for everyone through intervention, education, and advocacy. So it's important. We want to make sure that these are emphasized. The most important things that we have highlighted is stopping, the abuse for everyone, and the education portion. It's important to be knowledgeable of, you know, resources, situations, being knowledgeable of, what, where, when, how, what can I do, things of that nature. And even if you can't answer those, just finding the resources, the areas that you can look into that can help you and assist you with these things. I particularly work in the education and prevention department. I particularly work from the youngest age of middle schoolers. So that's about 12, I believe about between 12 to 14, 15, around that age. So we start very early into educating and giving that understanding of domestic violence and teen dating violence, because that does exist, teen dating violence, as well as and getting that dynamic as far as what's going on with that and how to better improve those things in healthy relationships. So with that being said, we also have departments and areas where we promote and advocate as much as we can to situations of domestic violence and intimate partner violence. Now, keep in mind, I will be using domestic violence and intimate partner violence interchangeably, as they define as generally the same thing. So you might hear more of me saying intimate partner violence than domestic violence, but they both are all under the same umbrella. So with that being said, I wanted to make sure that it is aware for everyone that domestic violence crosses all boundaries of culture, age, race, sex, gender, identity, sexual orientation, education level, socioeconomic status, aka this is meaning everyone. This can happen to everyone. You can't really look at someone and say this is, a situation you probably would be going through. As this is a situation that it can happen to anyone and everyone. We don't, we won't recognize it unless it's being said. But we can see signs. We can definitely see these red flags, whether it's it personally happening to yourself or seeing it from the outside in, right? So well, let's go into how many people are affected. Let's go into a little bit of the statistics so we are all aware of, the numbers and why this is so strongly important for us to speak out on these things and advocate for these situations and be allies to friends that are and people and family that are experiencing this. So in this case, 1 in 3 women experience intimate partner violence worldwide. So that's throughout the world. In any case, that's the general dynamic number that was placed under that umbrella. So just thinking about it, if we could look at a map with a whole bunch of women on that map and we count 3 women in pairs, at least one of them will experience it at some point in their lifetime. Okay. With that being said, comparing that to the United States, we have 1 in 4 women that experience intimate partner violence within the US. So that is a little bit better. But in any case, the numbers are still low. So within the United States, if we just put that map there and just put a whole bunch of women there and we count 4 pairs each, at least one will experience that. And that's still a low number, right? So even continuing on, so with men, again, because as I explained earlier, it can happen to anyone and everyone. As Ms. Stewart has mentioned earlier as well, that is women, men, children, LGBTQ plus community, elderly, disabled. We can think about all areas. It can happen in any of those dynamics, right? Or any of those groups of people. So for men, particularly 1 in 10 men experience intimate partner violence within the US. So that number jumps, there is a number difference there, as you all can see, but in any case, in comparison to just it being in the tens, that's a jump, but it's still a low number, right? We can see that it happens. It's not like it's a situation in all areas. 1 in 100 or anything like that. It's definitely just a 1 in 10, definitely, right? So that's still low. So let's go ahead into a few other areas, right? So let's acknowledge as far as with the LGBTQ plus, LGBTQ plus people experience intimate partner violence at the same or elevated rates as their LGBTQ plus, as their non-LGBTQ plus peers. So I wanted to acknowledge this, although we don't have a particular number on this yet, and it's unfortunate that we don't have a number as if you guys can understand, the reason being is a lot of the time, we still have people a part of the LGBTQ plus community that have not outed themselves. They fear, experience letting people know, what kind of person they are, that they're a part of this community, their gender identity, any of those things of that nature, for the fear of a lot of things, just the mere fact of homophobia. Anyone within their the environment that is, homophobic, or experiencing, uh, maybe a law enforcement being homophobic, or counselor being homophobic in that situation, and they fear that these situations might come out, or even people within their support system speaking on, their areas on being homophobic. It may not, and they might lack those situation of support because of that, of them outing themselves. So we can't really get a true number as to the amount of people that are experiencing this, but we know that it happens just at the same rate so far, right? So just so you can guys get a little bit more depth and understanding why this is so important for us to know and understand, 1 in 2 female murder victims and 1 in 13 male murder victims are killed by intimate partners. So you can see that this rate is quite strong, 1 in 2. So at any point in time, we can count 2 women experiencing a situation of abuse or intimate partner violence, and at least 1 in 2 of them will be could potentially be murdered. And that is the strength of this situation at hand, and how, if it is ignored, if it's neglected to speak on or try to fix on these issues and situations, how what the strength of that extent could be. That's the same for men as well. It's 1 in 13, and at that same rate, depending on that length, that the depth of it being neglected, ignored, and not spoken about, and no one advocating for anyone or being their ally, that these things can happen, and it can happen, just as quickly, right? So, understanding as well, more than 15 million children are exposed to domestic violence each year as well. So, I know, as far as within a situation of intimate partner violence, and the most common thing that we hear in situations with their children is just that. Is the fact that, okay, yeah, this happened, but my child was in the room when it happened. My child wasn't around. My child was sleeping when this happened, or they didn't hear. They were listening to music in the room or something like that. In all reality, these things really actually do happen. Whether even if they weren't directly there when it happened, or if they were in the room, they more than likely heard what's happened. We've had a lot of situations where children will let it be known that they or admit that they heard these situations of physical violence, verbal abuse, and things of that nature, sexual violence, and things of that nature, and they don't speak, and they're too afraid to speak on these things. And even at a young age, even if we feel okay, they're 1 years old, 1 year old, or anything younger than that, just understanding that, yes, they go through these things. They can see that, and and at some point, that they're going to go through that secondary trauma at some point, and them trying to expose how they feel and how they express themselves could be a reaction from what they've seen, and what they were exposed to domestic violence each year. So it's important that we realize, as much as we want to say that children don't hear these things, or don't see these things, or don't realize what's going on, they really do, and it can be very harmful for them in the future. And even with that, as growing up, and if they grow up within a violent home, and things of like that, and things of that nature, that does cater to and include to situations of what they can be experiencing in the future. So as you can see here, the statistic that shows is 1 in 3 teens even experience teen dating violence within the U.S. And that is very important, because that is just as low as women and men experiencing experiencing intimate partner violence. As we said earlier, 1 in 4 women experience intimate partner violence, and 1 in 10 men experience intimate partner violence in the U.S. And for the number to be 1 in 3, that is very strong. That is very noticeable, as you can see that number difference. And we want you all to realize that even as a parent or as a teen yourself, seeing this and seeing that number, that there has to be some type of improvement with that. There has to be some type of change, which is why I'm, as me particularly speak, like doing my presentations with middle schoolers, I feel it's very important that we acknowledge and provide them with the knowledge to understand what a healthy relationship looks like. And this is the same for any adult as well. Teens, as we all know, teens experience and learn at the most during their teenage years. They're experiencing, you know, they learn their lessons in a lot of things, and with this as well, they lack the knowledge of what they can identify. And these are the reasons, and these are some of the reasons why teens are experiencing violence and may not even realize it. And they're exposed to these situations, and a lot of the time they're exposed from situations where they see this within their homes, they see this from their peers. You're getting the societal reinforcements that it's okay to continue these things, and no one's telling them no and stuff like that. And these continue on to the adult life, which is why we see these so much more, why we see this within adult, because as much as we want to deny this, we have to acknowledge that it is a fact that for males particularly, because primarily a situation happens to females, but primarily we see a lot of the abusers happening to are males, although we don't want to acknowledge that it's just males. It can be anyone and everyone that can be the abuser just as much as the victim, but primarily men that are exposed to violence within their homes are 10 times more, or one of the times where they're more than likely to experience or to be violent to their partner or children as well when they get older. And these are facts. And researchers have proved that. So we want to be careful and want to make sure that we're knowledgeable and we know what the signs are and what's going on. So as particularly for parents, there was a rating and testing done, and it shows here that 81% of parents believe that teen dating violence is not an issue, or they admit they don't know if it's an issue. And even with that being said, only 82% of parents though 82% of parents feel confident that they could have recognized the signs of their child experiencing teen dating violence, only 58% could not correctly only 58% of parents could not correctly identify all the warning signs of abuse. So that shows just as likely as just as important for children to know these signs. Parents as well need to see these signs and understand the signs from when they're, if their child is going through that. So that means the knowledge doesn't just need to be passed from children up, but also needs to still be instilled into us as adults as well, so that we can still recognize and acknowledge these things that, yes, this is healthy, this is not healthy, this is not okay, this is okay. So why is this a problem? Especially just due to the fact that, it's teens, they're living their life, they're experiencing things. Why is this a problem? Especially with it being becoming adults and still going through these issues. So the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention did the numbers, and it said that up to $12.6 billion intimate partner $billion were used in a situation where that was the cost of the intimate partner violence each year. So that was up to $12.6 billion, right? 8 million days of paid 8 million days of paid work were lost to victims of domestic violence each year, and as well acknowledging 50% of homeless families are attributed to domestic violence each year as well. So homelessness and things of that nature isn't just fully just a financial issue. This domestic violence or intimate partner violence that contribute to more than half of the reasons of the half of the people we see that are homeless now in the families. In any situation with $12.6 billion that are used each year, whether it's someone getting paid time off, paying medical expenses, paying for any of these things, anything around that, it's used, and no one realized the extent of how much money is put into a situation that could be easily prevented. Okay, it's so important that we realize and even with the 8 million days of paid workers that are paid work that are lost to victims of domestic violence each year, that's whether it's someone not willing to come, or not mentally not prepared to come into work, physically aren't prepared to go to work. No one wants to go to work with a black eye or bruised, or coming to work with, broken arms or anything like that. Or no one wants to go to work trying to fake a smile when they mentally just want to break down and cry all day. So, we have situations where people are home and they don't want to come. So here I see that we may have a question. Does anyone have questions so far? I would love to answer them as best as possible.
Sorry, I was trying to answer. No, let me see. I don't see any questions as yet. The only question I have that I'd ask right now is, because this seems to be such a private matter, how do we encourage the community to get involved?
So, as far as it's always been a private matter, and it's very difficult to try to express that. And the first people we go to for children, the first people they go to is their peers, their best friends, and things like that. For adults, they're going to go to their family members, close friends, things of that nature. And as a community, if you have those close people next to you, we have to remember that we need to approach them, that we should approach them, in the best manner possible. I know the first question that's always asked is, well, why did you stay in the first place? Why didn't you leave? Why didn't you do any of that? And some of those and questions like that can be so discomforting, just in the mere fact of them admitting to you their embarrassments or their shames or anything like that of going on in the situation, whether it's them being in the situation itself, or, having to admit to them, like, look, this is what happened, or anything like that. We have to acknowledge that, those might not be the best questions. Just to be the listening ear and be an ally to them might be the best way possible, and say, hey, what can I do for you? Is there anything I can do? Where can I help you? Do you want me to just listen? Because the first thing that people would want to do is just be heard. They want to be heard. They want to make sure that they're heard, they're understood. Um, it doesn't have to be like, yeah, I've experienced this too, but just that, look, I hear what's going on. I hear you. I'm acknowledging, and it's not like, we don't victim blame here as well, because it's never the victim's fault. It's never the victim's fault. So we don't want to say, well, what did you do to cause he or she to do that? We don't want to ask questions like that. We want to just listen, be a listening ear. Well, how can we, help you out? Do you want me to help? Do you want my help? I can always provide you with the resources. If you're not ready, just let me know when you are ready, and I'll be your standby when you are ready, and we can figure this out. So hopefully I answered that question for you, but it's one of those really important, just because it's so personal that you can't necessarily say, hey, I'm waving my hand, I'm an advocate for you, you can just tell me anything. It's really not that easy. So just be there for those people that you're close with, and that starts from there. And you can always recommend and research those things.
Thank you.
No problem. So with that being said, as we know, continuing on, if there's any other questions, feel free to let me know. But I'm going to continue. As we know that, $12.6 billion are put into a situation of domestic violence each year. 8 million days are, you know, are lost due to domestic violence each year. And, more than 50%, 57% of homeless families are attributed to domestic violence. So these things are so important to realize, right? So let's look into the dynamics of intimate partner violence. So it's not just this happens and whatever the case may be, there are certain dynamics that abusers will use to gain power and control. But even before we even get into these things, I wanted to make sure that we acknowledge the Florida statute definition. So as it reads here, domestic violence means any assault, aggravated assault, battery, aggravated battery, sexual assault, sexual battery, stalking, aggravated stalking, kidnapping, false imprisonment, or any criminal offense resulting in physical injury or death of one family or household member by another family or household member. Keep in mind there, with this last portion here, there is definitely a good explanation as to who we consider household members. So it's not just, domestic violence isn't necessarily, as the Florida statute would explain, simply your boyfriend, because in any case, we know that if your boyfriend does not live with you or have not lived with you, that's not technically considered domestic violence or intimate partner violence. Well, it can be considered an area of intimate partner violence, but not specifically domestic violence. But in any case, I wanted to also put out something that was very important, and I wish that we can make some improvement to the Florida statute, because again, it doesn't cater to any other areas of definition or any other forms of abuse aside from physical. It could be sexual or at any point stalking. At any point, I believe it caters to these three areas and nothing more. But in all other things, I also wanted to acknowledge the mere fact that it said here in purple, any criminal offense resulting in physical injury or death. So I usually would ask you all, what do you find interesting or what do you find a little bit weird about that last statement? But I'll tell you all, it's just the mere fact that if it's a criminal offense that results in death, there won't be a charge. Like, how could someone report an issue of domestic violence if they're already dead? So that I find that very interesting to me. That we have the definition stated here, especially with the situation of death. We can't necessarily say that a family member or someone else might report that it was an issue of domestic violence, but who's to say when that particular person experiencing it is already dead? So that's something that was very interesting to me, and that was very interesting with this Florida statute. But even with that being said, I want to make sure that is aware. But here at Women in Distress, we do cater to a lot more other forms of abuse within that situation of domestic violence or intimate partner violence. So with that being said, we have the intimate partner violence definition. The intimate partner violence definition is a broad term for domestic violence and dating violence, right? Then we want to make sure that we're aware that a pattern of abusive behaviors through the use of power and control tactics used by one person or another in an intimate partner relationship. I'm sorry. So I want you guys to realize the importance of this sentence here. Power and control tactics. We want to acknowledge a lot of the time we see situations where people say, oh, that person's an alcoholic, oh, they have anger management issues, that's why they were going through that issue of intimate partner violence and domestic violence. And that's not the primary reason of domestic violence or intimate partner violence or anybody using drugs or anything like that. It is the tactic of power and control. Okay, and the use of power and control over another person can be done soberly, not sober. They can be done when they were angry, in any area of emotion. But we want to make sure that is acknowledged. It is not because of anger management. It is not because they're under the influence. It's not because they're drunk or anything like that. It's because that person primarily wants power and control over you. Okay, or let me not say you, over another person. In any case, right? So right here on the right-hand side, we have the power and control wheel. There is a few tactics that are here within this. I won't necessarily go into details specifically for each one, but if you do go online and you type in power and control wheel, a regular one will come up. One for teen dating violence particularly will come up. One for the LGBTQ plus might come up, and there might be a few more, but those are the three ones that we primarily are aware of. Just so you are aware, there are particular tactics for these particular situations, and just so I can read here so you are aware, the things we have around this circle here would be intimidation, emotional abuse, isolation, minimizing, denying, and blaming, using children, economic abuse, which we also consider financial abuse. They both are the same thing, male privilege, and coercion and threats. So I want to make sure that you are aware that these are some tactics that an abuser might use. There might be more areas that more of smaller tactics they'll use as well when they want to gain power and control over another person. And I also want to acknowledge here that it is a learned behavior. As I said earlier, that the researchers have done a male or a boy that has witnessed intimate partner violence or violence within their home as children, or when they were young, or when if they've seen it at all, they're more than likely to be violent towards their partner or children. So not to say that it's all males, but that is some. Most males will be at least some type of violence, but that's, again, I always want to acknowledge it's not all. So now that we've gone over and we've at least listed some of these things, as far as at least we went over this circle, and that you acknowledge there are some tactics that are here, we're going to go ahead and move on to the types of abuse or forms of abuse in any case. So this little small wheel here, this one is actually the teen dating violence power and control wheel. Okay, so, and it is a little bit different, just a tad bit. This right here is minus off using children, but what is included here is using social status. So what we have here is emotional anger, emotional abuse, using social status, intimidation, minimize, deny, blame, threats, sexual coercion, isolation, exclusion, as well as peer pressure. So that is the teen dating violence version of the power and control wheel. And I wanted to acknowledge that. But some other areas that we want to acknowledge that I definitely wanted you all to see here are the other types of abuse. So we have physical violence, we're all aware of. Sexual violence, we're all aware of. Emotional abuse or verbal abuse, which they coincide with each other, okay? Then we have stalking. And one important thing that I would love to acknowledge about stalking is what's also considered stalking is giving away or giving unwanted gifts to another person. I found that very interesting to me, as when I came into this job and I started doing presentations and learning more about intimate partner violence, domestic violence, teen dating violence, that given unwanted gifts is a form of stalking. So if you can picture this in your head, as a situation where we all love gifts, it's great. But if you're being followed, you know that you're getting discomfort from this particular person, or there's certain things that you don't feel okay with, and you feel unsafe, and then all of a sudden this person is wanting to give you a pair of earrings, or this person is wanting to give you a pair of sneakers that you just you really liked, or you probably posted on social media, but you don't want that from that particular person. Imagine you denying that gift and consistently receiving this gift in multiple locations. You're at home and you see this gift, so you return it. Then you go to your work job and someone has dropped off that same gift to you. They're calling your job to see if you're in so they can give you this gift. They're meeting up with you at places that you probably places that you are at that you probably didn't even invite that person to, and they're trying to give you a gift just to show that they probably even like you, or try to show something, try to show their appreciation some way, somehow, and you're trying to deny it. So these things can be very extreme, especially if you're seeing that consistently and you're starting to see patterns of that. Again, I want to acknowledge the term patterns, because when you're starting to see patterns, a lot of the time when we're seeing these things, we see it once and we're like, okay, either I'm just going to take it, or either I'm just going to go with the flow, or I might nip this in the bud. But if you're starting to see so many patterns, and either you're trying to nip this in the bud and they're not acknowledging your boundaries, or you're respecting what you're saying, or whether you didn't say anything and you're just still seeing more of that, you want to pay attention, because there might be an area where the relationship, whether it is a partnership, or like partnership relationship, or it is a friendship, even on that level. And as I love to explain this to middle schoolers as well, but this is also applies to adults, that if you see these patterns, know that these are warning signs and red flags that you should pay attention to. You need to realize whether this is unhealthy or even abusive, for how extended it can be. So again, we want to acknowledge as well the other areas of or forms of abuse. So we have economic abuse, which we also use the term financial abuse, which is the same thing. So that's either a situation where they're withholding money, taking money from you, or they're telling you that you can't work and things like that. So a lot of the times, you get into a relationship and they're saying, you don't have to work. I don't want you to work. I can give you the money. And then they start to try to, take that power and control from there and take advantage of these situations. Or it could be even opposite. Like we all know the term that whether it's someone joining this relationship strictly for the money, and taking someone's money for the what's the word I'm using? And manipulate, and try to manipulate their partner for the sake of love. So if you love me, you would give me this money. If you love me, you would give me these pair of shoes and things like that. And I think the best term that a lot of a lot of people tend to label this as is a gold digger, you know. So we want to acknowledge these are both areas that could be an area of economic abuse that can even lead up to, someone using your social security, or someone, using your credit to get a car or a house or things in that name, and in their name or in your name. Um, so these are areas that we want to acknowledge, that these can happen, and it can be very, and it can be abusive. And if you're seeing these patterns and you're not acknowledging it and you're not okay with it and things like that. So far I've been through half this list. Does anyone have any questions for me? I would love to answer them. So far.
Hold on, let me check. I'm checking the chat. If you have questions, please type it here. I see good information. Thanks for sharing. Go ahead and type your question. But I do have a question. I think this is very, very interesting. And I just want to comment that adding the teen dating violence, because I've never thought about violence as about all that manipulation and all that. So I think that's very important call out. And as parents, that we need to be aware of and educate our children on all that manipulation.
So important.
And talking about the red flags, all the gifts, and people giving you these gifts because they know it's a kind of manipulation. So I think this was really, really powerful, great thing. One question I want to ask so far, as I check the chat to see if there's any other question. One of the questions that I want to ask is, you said at one point that you want to be there for your loved ones, you want to be there to listen, but you do have situations that you know that intervention is needed. They don't want you to intervene because they're so afraid. At what point do you say, okay, I got to do this, I got to call somebody, I got to tell somebody? What point do you intervene, even though that they don't want to, because of their fear of their partner?
So I actually got a question here that's very similar to yours. Someone asked, how do you have a conversation with someone that you believe is going through abuse? In any case, it is okay. So we have a lot of situations where we see it and it's so frustrating and we're so upset. And we're like, look, I know that you're going through this, but you're not saying anything. We want to make sure that we can control our emotions first, right? That we know that, whether we're upset, frustrated about what someone is experiencing, but we also want to just simply let them know, hey, is there anything you want to talk about? A lot of times, you might see someone get off the phone very upset, very frustrated. You can hear them in an argument, and, you don't want to obviously, put them on the spot. So you could simply just say, is there anything you want to talk about? Are you okay? I'm here for you. And if they don't want to speak, it's completely fine, as long as they know that you're there for them. So if they don't speak, it's, hey, it's fine. Just know that I'm here for you whenever you're ready to speak. Because one thing that we do here at Women in Distress, we're not going to force you to do anything you don't want to do. So if you don't want to report your partner, that's completely fine. If you don't want to do any of these things, that's fine. We're here for you. We're going to encourage you the best way we can. We're not going to force you to do anything. This is on your own will, because we are not the experts here. We only support you on the best way we can. So in any case, we just want to make sure that it's knowledgeable that we're here when you're ready. And if you're looking for any of these services or help or anything like that, we're here for you. But we're not going to force you to do anything that you don't want to do. And as a friend, as a partner, as a family member, any of those areas, as a random person, you don't want to force them to do anything you don't want to do. You can recommend it, but we don't want to pressure anyone. So simply, hey, look, I notice this is going on. If you want, I can give you resources. I can give you resources. I can direct you to Women in Distress. You can ask your questions. You know what? Here's a number. You can call our 24-hour hotline and you can ask all the questions you need. If they don't want to do that, that's fine. Just know that I'll give you the number, and when you're ready to call, if you want, I could be right next to you. Whenever you're comfortable, give them that comfortable space, because they're already more than likely experiencing pressure in their relationship or their partnership or friendship, and they don't want any more pressure from anyone else, right? So just know that you're there. You got to be patient, but know that you're there, right? So it's just being that ally. We don't want to force them, and it might be frustrating because you might see this go on for so long, and it could be days, weeks, it could be months or however, but we want to be sure that we're there. And one thing and one fact that I can't remember if it is here on this list, but I just want you all to know, again, because it primarily, domestic violence or intimate partner violence primarily happens to women, right? We know that. I always ask questions to people like, if someone's experiencing abuse and they're knowledgeable of it, how many times will they leave before they officially say, I'm done? And on average for women, it's 7 times. Okay. It's not to say that every woman is the same, but it's 7 times. So, as frustrating as even being a support system or being on the outside looking in as your friend, as a family member, or anything like that, if you see that happen multiple times, and as frustrating as you might feel, still be there for them. Because when they're officially ready, they'll be ready. So you could just say, hey, like, you could always be that friend. Hey, we can safety plan. And if you all are not aware of what safety planning is, again, you can look it up. This is just a guideline to help someone that is experiencing an unhealthy relationship and is ready to break up, and so that they can break up safely for you and for that partner, right? So you can always say, hey, look, I know this, if you acknowledge that this is going on and you're not ready yet, let me know. I can always make a safety plan with you. We can safety plan. We can include whoever you like and who you feel comfortable with. So when you're ready, we know what to do. You give us the code. You give us the code word, and we're here. That's the most important thing. It's so warming and comfortable to understand that you have people around you, regardless of what decisions you make. It's a support system, right? So yeah, hopefully that answered your question, as
Right.
well as the question that was here online as well. But yeah, it's important to have that. I think the most important thing is just the support system, regardless of what you're going through, the decision someone makes. It's just having the support, so when you are ready, you have that strength to do so. So if there's any more questions, feel free to ask, drop them in the question area or in the box. I am going to continue. So we already went through half of the list here. These are the 6, these are about the 5 or 6 primary things that we acknowledge when it comes to the types of abuse. We also have the area of isolation. Isolation is a situation where your partner could simply not want you to be around not want you to be around your family members, not want you to be around your friends. So with that, they want to take up all of your time. Just, hey, let's go out to eat, let's do this, let's do that. And they want you around all areas of the time, to the point where you're no longer around your friends as much as you want to. You're no longer around your family members as much as you want to. You don't have a friend to speak with or talk to all the time, right? They want to isolate you from that potential allyship that you have. So that's what isolation is. And I actually want to acknowledge as well that if you see on the power and control wheel, there's also exclusion, and exclusion is important as well, because exclusion could be the other side of that as well. So in any case, instead of the partner actually purposely probably isolating you from your families and friends, your friends or your family member excludes you from activities and hanging out and being friends, just due to the fact of the relationship, whether they know that you're around your partner so much that they don't feel comfortable, inviting you out to dinner, or inviting you out with, to a girls' night or guys' night or anything where we acknowledge, right? Due to the fact that they're with their partner, they might deny it anyway, or they might just show up with their partner anyway, and because they're, attached to them, like attached to the hip, maybe, right? So exclusion might happen. And then we also have situations where they're using children, whether it's threatening, threatening the relationship. Look, if you leave me, I'm going to hurt the children. If you leave me, I'm going to take custody of these children. If you leave me, what are your children going to eat? If you leave me, who is going to pay for this for you and your children? So these things are important, because that applies to the reasons, to some of the reasons why someone may not leave a relationship for the sake of their children. Or if you leave me, or even if, besides the threats or the manipulations of children, it's just the thought of what trauma that can bring within the separation of the the family member, the relationship. I separate from my husband, or I separate from my wife, or I separate from whomever, and what will my children experience? They're going to experience, I might not be financially stable enough to be on my own. How can my children survive? Or what will they go through? I know that they might, feel some type of way that we're separating. They might see the violence and the things that might be going on realistically. So these things are some of the other areas and tactics that can be used against someone, as well as not just children, pets also. We have a pet shelter here at Women in Distress. And that also caters to situations as to why someone won't leave. People love their children, their pets just as much as they would love like their children or anyone close to them. So they use their pets as an area, a tactic within their relationship for abuse and control. And we also have privilege, whether it's male privilege. We know that you know the use of situations like okay, I'm the male, I'm the man in the house, or anything like that, or whether it is privilege as far as um, it could be a situation where it's because I'm of this color and my partner is of that color, and they might use that advantage towards me or something. It could be all kinds of areas of privilege, or as well as an age privilege. Maybe it could be a situation where, as a woman, that woman could be older than the male, so they have they feel they have that superiority over the male that's younger, and might use that as an advantage or a privilege over that person. It could be all kinds of things that could be used in that situation. Then we have threats and coercion. We know how that sounds. It could be a subtle, overt situation of threats and coercion, and it could be a covert. Like it could be something that's so subtle, or it could be so completely loud. That with force, it could be a simple look. All your friends are doing it, you're not doing it. What's going on? Or it could be literally, look, if you don't do this, I'm gonna lock you out the house. It could be definitely things. It could be anything of that nature. But understand as well, and I teach this to kids as well, just because it sounds nice or they have a smile on their face, that doesn't mean it's still not a situation where you're being forced, or a situation where you're not being threatened. You still need to listen to the words. So I can have a smile on my face and say, if you don't go out with me tonight, like, I'm not giving you the keys to the car tomorrow. That's simple. I can smile about it, but that's still a threat. That's still forcing someone to do something. So we want to acknowledge these things, even if someone has a smile on their face, or how nice or they sound and things of that nature, right? That's still an issue. Then we also have the minimizing, denying, blaming. So I know we see this common, even in a friendship as well. We have a situation where someone might minimize the situation, like maybe you went to the store, and a person, and you and your partner are in the store, and one partner yells at the other person. Could be for a simple reason. They're, could be about cereal. We don't know. And not to make the situation small, but it could be a situation. It's just the mere fact that that person yelled at you in public and you're embarrassed about it. So you try to acknowledge that situation in the car. Hey, look, you yelled at me in the store and that wasn't okay. What do you mean? It wasn't that serious. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't even do that. I didn't yell at that. It wasn't that serious. Minimizing. I didn't even do all of that. Denying. You know what? If you just listened to me in the first place, that wouldn't have happened to you. Blaming. You want to acknowledge these things. As small as they could be within a situation that could be hurtful. And you want to acknowledge that these things are minimizing, denying, and blaming. So when someone does that and they're doing that consistently towards you, that's a red flag and it's a warning sign. So we want to acknowledge that, right? So with that being said, I had some areas, and I definitely wanted to acknowledge these areas and the types of abuse and forms and tactics and things of that nature. With that being said, we're going to move on a little bit. So why does domestic violence occur, right? So domestic violence occurs for all kinds of reasons, right? We have we have the power of social influence that happens. So it could be an area of patriarchy, oppression. We have gender roles, negative media, normalizing violence, unhealthy social norms, unrealistic relationship expectations. These all play a part as to why these situations of domestic violence or intimate partner violence can happen, right? So as we said earlier, someone that has a certain privilege can use that over that person, and then they might take advantage of those situations. Whether it is also gender roles, then we also want to acknowledge too, like, we all commonly, a lot of us commonly grew up acknowledging that, the man has to be the man of the house, things of that nature. These are gender roles, and it doesn't have to be like that. Or, a woman, or, I see this comment on social media where, women should be submissive. And there's a battle between that, where it's not necessarily has to be like that. We don't know what these roles don't have to necessarily be in the relationship, because not every relationship needs to be the same, right? Every relationship is different within one another. whatever you guys or whatever you two agree with within your relationship is how your relationship runs, and it shouldn't be the same for anyone else, right? We want to acknowledge that. Negative media, a lot of times on media, whether it's shows, songs, videos, things of that nature, they portray a toxic relationship. They portray negativity in the relationship and things of that nature, and it's portrayed so much that it's starting to become normalized. And that goes into the second portion, which was normalizing violence and things of that nature. And we want to acknowledge that, although we see it, we want to make sure that we can differentiate what's realistic and unrealistic within the relationships. And that's a big influence for kids. And that's also an influence for adults as well. And we may not even realize that, even if on whatever maturity level that we have, right? Then we have unhealthy social norms. We're acknowledging certain things of that nature, like, some things that are unhealthy is just, like for instance, using the term that someone is gay or part of the LGBTQ plus is a negative thing at some point, right? Although we're changing that dynamic, that used to be a social norm that if you called someone gay, that it was just a bad thing, and we want to acknowledge that it's not necessarily that, we want to acknowledge and normalize the mere fact that it's okay to be a part of the LGBTQ plus community, and that if that person is gay, that is their sexual, orientation. That's just who they are, not that it's a gay thing, and that someone should be ashamed of that. And then unrealistic relationship expectations. That's very important. We don't want to, we all have our expectations on a relationship, but we want to make sure that we're acknowledging that we don't want to put it unrealistic. Like, you got to text me 24 hours within a day. If not, we can't be together. Look, we sleep for at least 8 hours of the day. So I don't think that's possible, right? So, just putting that out there. So for the sake of time, I probably won't show that video. If we do have a little bit more time, I would love to go back to that during the video, and it shows the dynamic of how relationships and how certain things can be normalized within family members' relationships and how that goes growing up. So please let me know, Ms. Stewart, at the end, if we have time for the video. I can definitely go back towards that. But in any case, going into why do victims stay? I know we love to ask these questions. I do want to acknowledge that sometimes asking this question can be inappropriate, but if you have a comfort level with your friend or whomever, you can ask if they feel open to speak and acknowledge that. But, we want to already have these things set in our heads. And if you don't know, there are many reasons. For one, we have fear and safety. Just the fear of retaliation, the safety of another. A lot of the times we see situations where people tell us that, yes, my partner even came to my job and hurt me. We want to acknowledge that these things happen. So fear and safety is very important, no matter where a person is or how, we just want to make sure that you're safe and, you're fearful and you want to do things the right way, which is why we also acknowledge safety plans. Then as well as children, are reasons why someone would stay. Legal barriers, whether you're married, how that there's some things that go on with that. Custody of children and things of that nature. There are always barriers, to that situation. Then we also have situation of social pressures, and the most common one that we have is like, when I say, we want to make sure that we're allies and things of that nature, we want to also be careful of what we say. So as friends and family, if, a friend or family member acknowledges, yes, this person hit me, this person has been doing this to me. And the first thing that we say is, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. He or she looks like an amazing person. You guys look great together. And just the mere pressure and thought that we do look good together, at least, if we look good together, then why not stay? That could be a simple reason. And although that might be, stupid for some, like why, like it doesn't matter, social pressures definitely make a great influence on people's decision on staying or leaving, especially if they're one of those social media people and they post their relationships and people love to comment, oh my gosh, when are you guys getting married? You guys look so great, things like that. It's like, well, if we have the potential to get married, or if we look so great, then, I hope then we could probably work this out and figure it out, because I would love to have this image continue on in the future. So these are some things as far as social pressure, whether it's a family member saying that this person seems great, why would you leave that person? Or if it is even on social media and comments. Then we have financial dependence, of course, is what we acknowledge within economic abuse or financial abuse, just knowing that if you leave this person, you financially can't support yourself, support your children. These are important. Then we also know that for the sake of love, some people just don't leave because they love that person and they don't know what love can feel like from another. They don't know and don't even realize what that can be like, right? Then we have religious and cultural beliefs. I know the most common one is divorce. I know in Christian families and relationships and things of that nature, when you get I believe it's like a sin, or it's not okay to divorce in a relationship. So, of course, that's important to realize. In all other areas too, there are religious and cultural beliefs that coincide and go against what situations with separation and leaving a relationship. Then we also have, of course, as we acknowledge, isolation, and we have blackmail, and then lack of resources. It's so important that we know and acknowledge resources. Um, Safety planning was also something that I found so important to me. I didn't know of this until of course, I got into this organization, and I learned so much. But just knowing your resources, knowing what you can do, where you can go to help you out in any situation, whether you're leaving, whether you just want to know what to do, where you need, help, or you need some understanding, therapy services, things of that nature. You know where to go for those, right? So a better question, rather than why they don't leave, is why do they abuse? And that's even on the opposite end. Why do they abuse? And the most common answer is to that from us is because they can and because it works. People really try these things, and because they see it work successfully, whether it's them seeing it, doing it themselves, or seeing it, or seeing it from their eye that this person tried it and it worked, so maybe if I can try it, it'll work. And because it worked, and there was no societal reinforcement, aka no one told them that it was not okay, and no one told them that they were wrong, they're going to continue. And just coinciding with that, it is a learned behavior. So if they do see that from someone else, and they see that it's okay, they might just, as I said earlier, they're going to do it themselves. And as I said, again, even listed here, societal reinforcement. And as I want to really acknowledge, it's not caused by drugs, it's not caused by anger, and it's not caused by anger. These issues are issues separate from the situation at hand. These things can increase the situation, increase the tension or the severity of a situation, but is not the primary reason. So whether it is a physical abuse and someone comes home under the influence, or under or drunk, or even with anger, it can increase the severity. Whether hitting someone that can accidentally hurt them, break their arm, and things like that, because a drunk person or angry person or a person under the influence may not have as much control over themselves as you would expect them to. So it can make it severe, but it is not the primary reason. So I always want to acknowledge this, and this is so important why it's on its slide alone. Abuse is never the victim's fault, okay? It is never the victim's fault. We don't want to blame anyone. We don't want to say, well, what did you do to cause the person to do it? How did, what did you say to that person? What is that? What did you do? It's not what did you do, because regardless of the situation, it should not have happened. You should not have been hit. You should not have been called your name. You should not have been this. You shouldn't have been any of that. You shouldn't have been forced into sex. You shouldn't have been sexually assaulted. You shouldn't have been raped. Okay? Any of these things, it shouldn't be your fault that it happened. So what are some signs? And these are some things I just want to quickly acknowledge to you all. Frequent criticizing, gaslighting, threats, harm, suicide, possessive jealousy. And I want to acknowledge possessive jealousy because of the mere fact that jealousy is an emotion. Everyone has it, and it's common to have. It is just how you go about your emotion of jealousy is what dictates why it's healthy and unhealthy. Okay. So if you feel jealous, it's okay to say, hey, I want to talk to you about something. I'm not feeling, I feel a certain way about your friend, or I feel a certain way about this or that. So I really want to express how I feel about that, so you can get that reassurance if need be. But if you're going about this angry, lashing out on that person, getting jealous, getting into fights, things of that nature, and it's consistent, that is possessive jealousy, and that's not okay. Okay. Blaming others for problem, consistently checking up. I want to acknowledge as well, with consistently checking up on a partner, make sure that we know that that if you are checking up on your partner, you guys are both okay with it. A lot of the red flags, a lot of the things that we are considering okay and not okay, that is not for anyone to judge upon anyone else's relationship, but only to know with your own. So for instance, a common thing that we love to acknowledge for middle schoolers is passwords to people's phones. If both people within the relationship are agreeing to give each other passwords openly, knowingly, and it's okay, that is fine. But it is a red flag if you're in the relationship, one person is not okay with sharing their password, and the other person is still and knows that person's not okay, but still forcing them to get their password and things of that nature. Yes, that's a red flag. That is a warning sign. That's not okay because they're blatantly ignoring your boundary. And that's the same thing that kind of applies within consistently checking up. It's okay if you're in a relationship and you're, checking up on them. Hey, I just want to make sure your day's good. I know that we're busy today, but I want to check up on you, see if you're okay. That's completely fine if you guys are both okay and open with this relationship. If not, if one person's not okay, that consistently checking up on could be a problem, especially if that's being ignored and blatantly ignored. That I don't like that, and especially also if it's ill intent. So it's like, I'm checking on you because I don't know what's going on. Where are you at? Who are you with? I don't know about that. So we want to make sure and acknowledge that, the difference, that you have a, positive intent and the ill intent that comes with that as well. So then we also have monitoring, consistent contact, monitoring and constant contact, isolation from family and friends, boundary and pushing and coercion, boundary pushing and coercion. So we spoke about a lot of these areas, and I want to make sure they're acknowledged as red flags, especially if one person is not respecting another person's decision on certain things. As well as frequent injuries, missing work or school, fear of partner, submissive behaviors, consistent deference to partners, emotional abuse, outbursts, and isolation. These are also things that other red flags you should pay attention to if you're outside that relationship looking in. So if you're a family member, friend, and you're starting to see these things and see these things happen, you want to make sure that you this is their moment when you have that moment to say, hey, I noticed there's a few things going on with yourself. I haven't seen you at work, or I haven't seen you, come out your room in a few days. Is everything okay? If just let you know I'm here, we can talk about it. I know that submissive behaviors can be very different due to cultural differences. So we want to be careful on those things as well. So I know there are some, cultural differences and religious differences that we see in here that caters to submissive behaviors within relationships. So want to be careful with that as well. But these are definitely the general things that we want to be careful for, and what we see when we see these in our friends and family. So what can you do? And I want to make sure that you guys are aware of, as I always said from the jump, avoid victim blaming, support survivors, let them know it's not their fault, avoid the victim blaming, using languages that focuses on the abuser's responsibility for the abuse, and non-passive, and then the awareness of your own biases, prejudices, prejudices, and avoid imposing your own cultural values. Don't judge, and you can say things like, I'm so glad you told me. I know this must not be easy. I'm listening. How can I support you? Things of that nature, and offer resources, and offer ways to help them access it. The only one responsible for abuse you experience is the person who chooses to abuse you. Okay, so we want to acknowledge these things, as well as when accessing resources, call, text, or chat from safe devices in the safe location, save or bookmark resources as other names, or use the exit button on websites. So as you can see here on the bottom, on our Women in Distress website, we have a button at the top right corner of our page. Let me go back. Of our page that says escape page. So if you are looking it up and for whatever reason your partner pops in, you can click that escape page and come off. I don't know if all other websites have that, but I know our Women in Distress top right tab has that. So as well as, even if you want to play it safe, you can have that person call from your phone, your friend call from your phone, so they don't, see their partner doesn't see your call history. They can, hey, if you want, you can look this up on my computer so you don't see that history on your computer. Just giving them ways to access it without, in a safe way. And then also, just so you are aware as well, we do have some more resources here. Women in Distress, of course, is our information. Florida Domestic Violence Hotline, 211. Again, 211 is actually really easy. If you can't remember any of these numbers, call 211 and you can say, I would like to get in contact with Women in Distress. They'll direct you to the hotline, or I want to see what areas I can get help in. I want to go to the National Sexual Assault Hotline. They'll direct you to these things. So these, if anything, I would love for you all to screenshot this, so you can hold this for your own in case you want to have these resources for the future, or take a picture of this. I would love for you all to do that. We also have there's also a Love is Respect hotline, that website and hotline that talks about, or online chat that helps, situations where someone wants to talk about things and they just need they just need someone to listen to them, especially also talking about healthy relationships and things like that. We also have Breaking the Cycle that talks about, situations and helps you out and trying to improve and understanding what a healthy relationship is talking about and other things as well, right? So then as well, I also wanted to acknowledge this one alone by itself, why it's on its page, is because awareness plus action equals social change. So if you do see these things, you do see something happening, please provide awareness to us to know that it's not okay. Provide action. So if you see someone experiencing that, you can always tell the abuser, this is not okay. You shouldn't be doing this. And if you don't feel comfortable doing this, you can always go to the person that it's happened to and say, hey, look, I just want you to know I saw what happened and this is not okay. And for whatever reason, if you want to, you want me to walk you home? Do you want me to walk with you? Do you want me? I just want to make sure you're safe. Just want you to acknowledge these things are not okay, so that they can try to help. They know that these things are, it clicks in their head as well. It's not okay, and as well. So as well, I wanted to make sure that as far as our services. We have our 24-hour crisis hotline. Actually, I saw a question, so even before I even get to this, we saw gaslighting, and someone asked, what is gaslighting? So gaslighting could be like a situation where, yes, I definitely saw the question. I'm going to answer that one right now. So gaslighting is like, let me see if I can provide this in the best way. Gaslighting could be a situation where you are, okay, so say a way that someone can increase the situation of like someone's sanity, right? So say you have a partner, and with that partner, you come home every day, you set your keys in the key bowl right next to the door. But in this situation, in the key bowl, but your partner decides to take the key out the key bowl and put it in the room every time, or they start to do that. They said, you know what? I know that this person's going through a stress. I'm going to light this up. I'm going to make them even more upset or stressed. And I'm going to add on to their situation. So every day, you put your keys in this key bowl next to the door, but your partner starts to take the key and put it in the room. Every time you go to the key area and you say, look, where are my keys? I definitely put it in the bowl. Partner tells you, no, you didn't. You put it in the room. What are you talking about? You put the keys in the room. Like, I don't know what's going on with you. You're acting a little weird. What's going on? And right now they're taking control of your sanity, right? Because right now you think you deliberately put these keys in that bowl, but they're taking the keys out the bowl and they're putting it in the room on purpose to make you feel very stressed and make you feel like you're out of your mind, that some of the things are not believable. That some of the things you got to question yourself. Like, did I really put the keys in that bowl? But I'm starting to find it in the room every day. So is it really just me? So now when their partner starts to do things like, let's go to, when the partner starts to make you doubt these things in the simplest way, and now they know they can make you doubt in other ways. So in any case, you can go into a situation where you caught them going through your phone a while back, but you didn't say anything or something. So when you try to acknowledge that, that person, because they know that already you're questioning yourself, they're going to say, did I really go through your phone? Did I really do that? I didn't do that. I think you're seeing things. I was definitely going through my own phone. It wasn't yours. So they start to question themselves. Do you see that dynamic that's going on? Hopefully that can give you guys the understanding what that means as far as when you're gaslighting a situation, or in any situation, how that can go increase into bigger things and situations.
Got it.
So hopefully, please let me know in the chat if I answered your question properly. If not, I will definitely get into more details and try to explain that. But just so we can go into the services, so I can go into any more questions that we might have. We do have a 24-hour crisis line, as I mentioned earlier. We also have outreach services. In any case, the outreach, no problem. Yay, I'm glad I answered it properly for you. So we also have outreach services. Our outreach services has an economic advocate. We also have a therapist that caters to adults and children. And then we have plenty of other areas that caters around to that. We also have our education and prevention department, which is primarily my department. And what we do, we cater to middle schoolers. I particularly cater to middle schoolers. Someone else does. We have someone that caters to a curriculum and programming for high schoolers. My program is about 8 sessions. with students to get in depth. And the high school is about 5 sessions to get in depth. And then we also have 101s, which is something that's what we did today. And we also have that catering to career professionals, college students. We also have trainings and workshops that cater around to that as well. And then we also have our residential shelter, which we are not able to disclose, but for anyone that's going through a life or death situation and just domestic violence, they're able to come to our shelter to seek safety. We also have our injunction for protection attorney program. That is for anyone that is seeking financial, so that are seeking anything in the law aspect. So if they're trying to get I'm lost for words. I'm sorry. If they're trying to seek, things like if they're looking to do divorce papers, even up to just getting a what's the term I would like to use here? When you restraining order. I'm so sorry, everyone. I was lost for words for a moment. And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, in our outreach services, we have our economic and empowerment services that's also within that area that helps anyone that, and when it comes down to even finding a new job, trying to financially seek apartments, places to stay, how to improve that development of financial status for themselves. And then we also have our pet shelter, which is fairly new for anyone that is coming to our residential shelter. A lot of the times, like I said earlier, people do not leave their relationships due to the fact that they can't leave their pets and they don't want to. So we have our pet shelter so that's, their animals can seek shelter as well. So with that being said, if you guys didn't get anything but would like some more resources, at least this is the number to our 24-hour crisis hotline. This is our website, www.womenindistress.com, and then .org, I'm sorry. And then we also have a Florida domestic hotline as well at 1-800-500-1119. So with that being said, that is it. That's all I have for you all. If you all have any questions, please let me know. Besides that,
So I just wanted to add before we do the wrap up, I just wanted to add that because we have a lot of people on this call that's not only from Florida, because as we said, it's a global presentation. We have people from New York, we have people from Canada, we have people from different states, different parts of the country. I'm sure you had something similar in your state, and those information you can look up. However, on one of the slides that she shared, there was a national hotline, which is 1-800-799 SAFE 7233. There's also National Sexual Assault Hotline, which is 1-800-656-HOPE. And there is national different websites. Break the Cycle, www.breakthecycle.org. That's Not Cool, www.that'snotcool.com. Loves Respect. So she's showing that slide right now. So there are numbers that you can find your own resources in your own state wherever you are. But please know that there is some way to get help. And the most important thing, like she said, that we want to know is that you're never alone and there is help. You just need to reach out to somebody or somebody can reach out to you. And we should break the silence, take the mask off, and let's speak about it. You don't want to suffer in silence. Somebody had asked about one quick question about emotional abuse. So the question was, what's your advice for somebody who's suffering emotional abuse? Because that's not, as visible as the others that we spoke about. So just quickly, your advice for that person.
So anyone that is experiencing emotional abuse, so as far as I can't really say as far as within the relationship or like, friendship or anything like that. I do want to make sure that it's acknowledged that, that you state your boundaries. I know a lot of the time some of the things that happen is, you don't state your boundaries or what you're okay with and what not okay with, and you may not even feel comfortable about that. So you can always talk to someone about it, talk to, a trusted adult or a friend or a family member or anything like that. I say trusted adult because I say that to children all the time. I'm sorry. Talk to a family member. You can always look into one of the resources like Love is Respect. They have a chat on the website that you can ask questions to or whatnot. We also have a 24-hour crisis hotline. You can definitely seek resources on the best approach when you're dealing with someone that is verbally and emotionally abusing you. in any case, always try your best to find ways where you can create that support system, and then, try to create that dynamic of, all right, how do I get out of this if, this doesn't change from someone, right? So I always recommend, if you start looking into safety plans, if you feel comfortable, I'm sorry, if you feel comfortable in speaking with someone that may not make you feel horrible about any of the situations, or if you trust someone that well enough, start creating that, like, hey, I need your help. I want to create this. Let's look into this and see things of that nature. But it's always best to acknowledge, like, I'm not okay with this. This has been happening for so long. I can't force you to do that if you're not comfortable. You can always find a different way or resources, or different ways or resources to acknowledge, let that person know. But if they start to blatantly ignore your requests, your boundaries that you're stating, always talk to someone and see the next best route, because we don't know, like, that relationship may not be best for you, but in any case, it's all on what you want to do next. So whatever plan you do decide, make sure you thoroughly think of that. And again, we have all of these websites here and hotlines that can help you find more interesting ways and resources to help yourself in this situation as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So first I want to just thank Angela Desenor from Women in Distress for taking an hour and a half out of her Saturday morning. It is many things she could be doing this morning, but we thank her for taking this time to share, impart knowledge, and to give us these valuable resources. I want to thank all our participants for joining this morning, and the parents on the line, and all of us. If you're not going through this, the great thing is that she shared signs for our teenagers, those who are dating, and those who are going through relationships, or friends, or loved one, family. Please take this information. It's very, very important. As she said, there's over 10 million people in the United States of America that's impacted with this. And we have people from Canada on the line also. So I know it's there too. It's a worldwide, it's a global issue. And some people are suffering in silence. So this morning, we focus on taking the mask off as it relates to domestic violence, and educating ourselves so we can help others and we don't have to suffer in silence. So again, Angelina, thank you. Angelique, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to ask us all, please remember to subscribe to MLSF YouTube channel. You can go ahead and subscribe to our channel. You can view us on Facebook. This was recorded, and we'll share it again live on Facebook later on, that we can share. The more we can reach, the more people we can reach, it's more important. That's what this is about. And again, please look us up, www.mlsf.org. That's our website. And we will continue to do our part in educating others, looking out for our children, because that's the future of the next generation. I encourage you also, on behalf of MLSF, is to go out and vote. We have started early voting here in Florida. Please exercise your right as a citizen of the United States to go out and vote wherever you are around the world. Wherever you are in the United States, it's our election. Please exercise your right to vote. Use your voice. Let's speak up. Let's stand up for what we believe in and make this world a better place. Thank you again, Angelique. We appreciate your time on behalf of MLSF. We thank you for your commitment to sharing your knowledge and to helping the world be a safer place. Thank you. Thank you all for joining. Have a great rest of your day today and enjoy your weekend.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.